Pascal Siakam just got traded to Indiana, which is great news for the Pacers and horrible news for all the other teams hoping to lock in the Siakam sweepstakes, especially the Warriors, who have no real options left. This trade sends Pascal Siakam to the Indiana Pacers, and the Toronto Raptors get Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, Kira Lewis, and 3 first-round picks. It seems like an eternity that Pascal Siakam has been on the trade market. Every season for the past few years, Pascal's name was constantly dropped in trade rumors everywhere, on Instagram, Twitter, and all over YouTube. Well, the time has come, and it's fair to say that no one expected him to go to a small market team like the Indiana Pacers. You would think that contenders around the league would be doing whatever it takes to lock in a player like Siakam because he brings so much versatility to any team. But at the end of the day, the NBA is a business, and the reason why most teams were hesitant to pull the trigger is because Pascal was looking for a 5-year max contract, and not many teams have the cap space to make that work. But why trade Pascal Siakam on an expiring contract? And why would Indy agree to bring in a player with only 4 months left on his contract? Would he be a short-term rental? Well, not exactly. Indiana would never go for that. It's very clear that Pascal is looking for that max contract, and with this trade, Indiana acquires Siakam's bird rights, which means that only they can offer him that 5-year max he's looking for. If Siakam wants to go to any other team, he would be taking a $60 million pay cut. The Pacers GM has some balls, unlike other cowardice GMs in the league. He decided to not waste Halliburton's time in Indiana and do whatever it takes to compete at the highest level. In the past, the Pacers have been cheap. They never gave Paul George the help he needed to make a proper playoff push. The Pacers regret not taking action before and how that got them nowhere. Now, with their young all-star Tyrese Halliburton, they decided it's time to go all in. But many people are skeptical if this was a good decision. But in reality, they didn't give up a lot to acquire Siakam. More on that later. You guys remember when throughout the league, people would look at the OKC Thunder and suggest that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander be traded because he didn't fit the timeline? Well, he's one of my main concerns with Pascal going to Indy. If they pay Siakam the max, he'll be 35 by the time the contract expires. Before this trade, the Pacers' starting 5 were Tyrese Halliburton, Bruce Brown, Miles Turner, Buddy Hield, and Ben Mathurin. Swap out Bruce Brown for Pascal Siakam, and they aren't a young team anymore. Their time is now. Stay until the end of the video to hear my predictions on how far the Pacers will make it in the offseason. We all expected the Pacers to rebuild when they traded for Halliburton, especially with constant trade rumors involving Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. At the time, Miles Turner was upset with his current role on the team and the fact that the Pacers hadn't made the playoffs since the Paul George era. That definitely didn't help either. But Miles Turner quickly changed his mind once he got to play with Tyrese Halliburton. Everything changed once he arrived, as he became a floor general that fits all the pieces together and involves every single player on the roster, which made Miles Turner happy with the new direction of the team, leading him to sign a 2-year contract extension to stay. And besides, you can't really tank when you have Tyrese Halliburton as your point guard. He wins you too many games. Just look at their in-season tournament success. They beat the Celtics and the Bucks in back-to-back games. With the team's current play and their bright future ahead, the Pacers felt confident in making a bold move to enhance their roster. Their only options were to get a star free agent or make a star-level trade. And let's face it, Indy doesn't get free agents. They're not the Lakers or the Heat. It didn't really make sense for the Pacers to rebuild. They're just too good. And rebuilds don't always work. Just look at the Pistons. They had all the right pieces they needed to make a successful rebuild, and on paper, they did everything right. They got their franchise player Cade Cunningham. They were stacked with first-round picks and even drafted in the lottery every season. 4 years later, their rebuild failed so badly that not only are they the worst team in basketball, they are the worst team in all sports. Or when the Hawks played great in the 2021 playoffs and even made the conference finals, leading them to think that they were ready to contend. What followed after the 2021 playoffs for the Hawks was a slew of bad decisions. They completely overpaid on Rajon Rondo and Danilo Gallinari, and they traded away 3 first-round picks for DeJounte Murray. I was on the fence comparing the Hawks' failed rebuild to this Pacers trade. But in hindsight, Murray's fit with the Hawks was never going to work, and Siakam's fit with the Pacers is perfect. Although Siakam's age doesn't add youth to the Pacers roster, it adds so much value on and off the court. And if anything, adding an older player to a young roster is only a locker room improvement. But on the court, Siakam is an efficient scorer that can shoot, drive, rebound, and pass. He isn't the best three-point shooter, but that doesn't matter as much when you have Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield on your roster. More importantly, Siakam is a perfect fit with the Pacers because of pace. The Pacers have statistically the best offense in NBA history. I'm not lying. Look it up. Siakam is a decent cutter and great on fast break attacks, two skills that will give Halliburton's passing ability an extra layer of danger. They have the number 1 offense in the NBA and the number 26 defense. Although Siakam's defense isn't elite, he doesn't make it worse either. He's also shown that he is capable of locking down the opponent's best player. Something that is rarely mentioned is the Pacers bench, as they have one of the best bench units in the league, and it only got stronger with this trade. Not losing Obi Toppin or Ben Mathurin is a huge win for the Pacers as well. Before we talk about the Warriors and every other team that missed out, let's talk about Toronto. Their most valuable assets in this trade are the 3 first-round picks and a seasoned veteran and NBA champion in Bruce Brown. He's a great player with playoff experience that could help guide their young core. But what the Raptors were mainly looking for was good young players to build around Scotty Barnes. That's why they traded OG Anunoby to the Knicks for RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley. Although they didn't directly get good young players, they have a lot of flexibility to trade for exactly what they want. They could easily deal Bruce Brown to a contending team looking for a great three-point shooter with finals experience and get a young player in return. Or they could package those 3 first-round picks in a separate trade to get back a solid return. Whichever way you look at it, the Raptors got a solid return for a player that they were never planning on paying, and trading him before they renewed his contract definitely made their lives easier. Now, with Siakam off the trade market, there aren't many valuable free agents available for the trade deadline. I think it's safe to say that the fan base of the Warriors, Suns, Kings, Mavericks, and Lakers just let out a collective cry of disappointment because they could acquire the best free agent this season. Now they're all left to pick up the scraps and wait until the offseason. But what's crazy is that the Warriors could have beat the Pacers and acquired Pascal Siakam because they have the young players the Raptors clearly wanted. But that meant trading away either Jonathan Kuminga or Moses Moody, which was something they were not willing to do, and with little to no first-round picks, they had no other trade assets other than their young players. So what can the Warriors do now? Nothing. They just have to thug it out and wait for the offseason. But if the Warriors want to make another push for a championship, they are going to have to trade whoever it takes to get Curry some help. But the Warriors fan base doesn't want to trade Draymond or Klay, so they're going to have to part ways with either Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, or both. But why didn't the Warriors just pull the trigger? Because they don't believe that Siakam is that missing piece. Whether they are right or wrong, we're just gonna have to wait and see. But the Warriors not believing in Siakam is a blessing for the Indiana Pacers. They were already the best offensive team in the NBA, and adding Pascal Siakam to the roster only makes them even scarier. Halliburton now has 2 elite pick-and-roll threats to choose from, and they will easily outscore any team in the league. With that being said, what can be expected from the Pacers moving forward? A deep playoff run? What about a championship? Well, let's not overhype this team just yet. I think they'll need to add some defensive-minded players to really be unstoppable. But they have arguably the best future in the NBA, and I do expect them to comfortably make the playoffs and at least make it to the second round. Halliburton will also grow tremendously as a leader and a first option, and I'm beyond excited to see this team build their chemistry and dominate the NBA. If you think Tyrese Halliburton is the perfect point guard for the Pacers, check out my videos on the trade that made all of this possible. Subscribe to my channel for weekly videos, and as always, thank you for watching.